Yes, buckle your seatbelt.
Welcome all to Rambling Canucks Roundtable Reviews. Today is going to be the inaugural version of this, which there will be many more of on many more topics. But today's topic will be Star Trek Enterprise, the original series, The Cage, Part 1. Part 2 will be next week. Joining me on the roundtable today is Captain Trek and Vance from No Budget Productions. Welcome, guys.
Thank you.
Hey, what's up, man?
All right, so we watched half of The Cage, and we ended it right as Pike realizes that the person that's in his cell is nothing but a figment of his imagination, and his crew is about to valiantly try to break him free. What are everybody's initial thoughts so far, Captain?
Well, I actually like how the episode begins, and with the first shot of the Enterprise. What about you, Vance? What are your first thoughts for the show?
Well, the thing about this one is it's got, like, the show originally was canceled, and they went to do Where No Man Has Gone Before to make it more cowboy-esque. But this, as I was watching this, I was keeping that in mind and going, why was this canceled? Because I don't think this was, as they put it, too cerebral. I think this had enough action in it. I think it had enough, sci-fi, imagery in it. I think this was just perfect for that time era. If you looked at like not Outer Limits, but Twilight Zone, how that was, it had just enough creep factor. It had enough action in it, especially as Pike and I think Vina was her name, as they're on the planet and they're attacking that giant, ugly-looking thing. To me, it had just enough thought behind it to be, one foot in the Twilight Zone era, another in the kind of cowboy-esque, fighting arena. So I really don't know why this was thought to be too cerebral. Maybe it had something to do with, women on the bridge, as they put it. But to me, I really enjoyed this. And this has always been one of my favorite classic Star Trek shows, or episodes. So I really found myself just enjoying this one even more so than I did before. And I don't understand why this got canceled, or at least the first part of it. I'm not understanding that. It blows my mind.
Yeah, well, for me, watching this, there's a few things I have to point out, and that is, wow, was it ever a shock to see paper used on the Enterprise? I've forgotten that part. And the other one that really makes me just go, wow, in the difference is Spock. The portrayal of Spock in this is so, knowing what we know now, what Spock became to this is just so different. I mean, he smiled in this episode, and he's, he's very military-esque in everything he says.
Well, it's even for then, like, it's kind of weird to have some dude just yelling, like.
Yeah, like, he didn't as much say his lines in this as he ordered his lines. He gave the commands, right? He's commanding his line every time.
Like, could you imagine this Spock driving up to, like, the McDonald's drive-through window? Like, that's.
Yeah, it's a little different. It's a little different. So when this episode begins and we first see the Enterprise, I really like that shot. And Vance, you had said that you really liked that shot. I did like the shot. I did like how they come in and then the camera goes into the hall and then onto the bridge. I really liked that. It was nicely done. I also, I guess the sweater uniform is kind of wearing on me. But as we're starting out, what was everybody's thoughts on Pike's initial "No, we're not going. We're sticking to our mission" statement in the show? Cap?
Well, at this point, you haven't really seen much of anything, and it does seem kind of out of line that he wouldn't want to explore other than lines that were said. But it doesn't seem right that they would just ignore it and go on.
Vance?
Well, the thing you have to keep in mind, and I never really thought about it until I was actually sitting here watching it in analyze mode. This isn't just the Enterprise flying through exploring space, which they would obviously, they get a distress call. Yeah, let's go check that out. But this is the Enterprise after a tragedy and after a huge incident. Think of it this way, like after Wolf 359, if they picked up a distress call from far off into the distance, 3 sectors away, would they really, be interested in going and investigating a what if? No, they'd be interested in, hey, let's heal our ship first, and then when it's safe, we'll go check that out. So that's kind of where Pike's at in this moment. He's like, look, not only has the crew taken a loss, but I've taken an emotion, it's taken its emotional toll on me. I'm not going to risk this for a what if, because we've lost part of the crew. We've lost, I've lost my personal motivation. Like, I'm not going to check this out. No, it's not worth it for me. So where normally a Starfleet crew would go and go explore, boldly, that's not necessarily the case here, because it's a tragedy, and it's the equivalent of, like, you just got your butts handed to you. You're not going to go check out something that's a what if from 19 years ago. So for me, it's not so far-fetched. I actually bought it the more I thought about it, in analysis and blah, when I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, and for me, they get a signal, but it's 18 years old. There's no real initially. There's no sign that anybody survived. So you're taking a detour on a somewhat important mission that you're on for a maybe.
Well, and the thing is, as soon as they realize that, hey, there is some evidence that there is something there, he instantly, once he reads the paper, that's when he straight up says, all right, let's go. And that's when it becomes a Starfleet that we know and love, and they go. So to me, the initial, nope, let's hold off, we're not going to even check it out. It doesn't really throw me off, because, again, the reason behind it is just because it's like, they just got their butts handed to them, and they need to recuperate first, but then, like I said, as soon as they get that, evidence, that's kind of all they needed. So to me, it made sense. But I tell you, the one thing I did like, I do like the sweater uniforms here, the ones they reuse them for Where No Man Has Gone Before. I actually like these enough where I had custom made a red Cage era uniform. Even though they weren't red in this, they were only beige, gold, and blue. To me, I never liked the idea of gold and beige, because I always felt like those colors were too close to each other. So I had a red one made, just because I really liked the Cage era, and it was one that you hadn't really seen. When you get to the Kirk era uniforms, they really just felt like, pop on a t-shirt, you're good to go. But with these, you see the different types, you see the jacket, you see the transporter people wearing, a type of jumpsuit type thing. You see, the different uniforms here. And I really like it, because it does feel different than the TOS series. So I really enjoyed those uniforms, and I kind of wish they had kept them around. I liked it that they brought it back during, like, Charlie X, or whenever you see, like, an older type shot, it calls back to these uniforms, because I really like them. I think they're more aesthetically pleasing than the TOS uniforms,
Yeah, I can get that. That's kind of cool. Okay, so moving on further into the episode. So after they've decided that they are going to go and investigate, the captain gives his orders. He leaves the bridge. He goes to his waiting room, and he or his quarters, and he calls in the doctor. And when he calls in the doctor starts prepping him booze and starts talking with him. And the Captain Pike explains that, after what's happened and everything that's gone on, he's pretty much ready to hang up his boots. He's really thinking this is it. This is I'm done. Checkout time. I've seen too much. I've lost too much. This chair is weighing on me. And I really found that interesting, especially the way they explained it and the way he portrayed it, because that's how somebody is when they're right at the end, right? In front of their friends and family, they're strong and they're ready to go. And then the minute they're alone in that, away from everyone, and the wall comes down, it's like, I don't know how I'm holding on. What the hell? How do I do this? Oh my God. And it really kind of, it hits you during this episode. I really liked it. What about you, Cap?
Well, I liked how Pike called the doctor. He just reached for his communicator, called him, rather than going to what they would do in the original series, which would be pushing the intercom. It seemed like it would be more personal communication rather than what normally was done in the series. And obviously the doctor knew exactly how he liked his drink, so this wasn't a one-off, obviously, or wasn't supposed to be.
Yeah, totally. And Vance, your thoughts on that part of the episode?
For me, something just felt off about that conversation. I know what they were going for, and it was well written. But that doctor, I didn't really care for the guy.
Yeah, I totally get you.
To me, he felt wooden. He felt fake. And to me, he felt about as real as the Telosians on the planet. I did enjoy him in the briefing room scene when they're all talking. There were moments where it's like, okay, I'd like to see more of the character, but I don't enjoy enough of the character's lines, and I don't feel like he was a good fit for that guy, for that character.
Yeah, I don't like how he delivered his lines.
No,
he delivered his lines like he was reading off a teleprompter.
Yeah, and when he says, like, later on, not to jump ahead, so forgive me, but when he says, they know exactly how to, every thought, what we want, like, it's just, it comes across so wooden. So this scene with the captain, it's written well, but it's not executed well for me. And something that should be a very heart-to-heart with Pike, I think Jeffrey Hunter did a wonderful job. And again, Pike has been one of my favorite captains long before Discovery used him, and long before Bruce Greenwood played him in JJ stuff. Pike was one of my favorite captains before, because I was never really a fan of William Shatner. Please don't crucify me, Trek fans. But I loved seeing Jeffrey Hunter. I was like, oh my God, this guy's great. And part of the appeal was this scene with the doctor, and it was always one-sided. I felt, because I always felt like, why are you calling out to this creepy old man? He doesn't get you. Like, he's creepy for one. He's giving you alcohol for two. I mean, these are all the dead giveaways of Herbert from Family Guy. Like, get away from him, So I just don't care for the character. It was written well. I don't feel like he was given the direction he should have been, or maybe he just wasn't a good fit. But I know what they were going for. I just don't feel like it was done properly. I loved the room. I loved the vibe that the whole thing was going for, the aesthetic. I love the feeling of the scene, but everything but that doctor was great. The doctor just didn't sell me. Especially given the fact that they're supposed to be old friends, people who are supposed to know each other, I just didn't buy it. So,
yeah, and for me, I mean, there was two things missing from that. One, the actor who played Pike, he was giving everything he could, emotions, the hand gestures, the facials. He was nailing it every time. And then the doctor was like just a wall replying.
Yeah, he was phoning it in. I felt.
And what the thought that went through my head was, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make the damn thing drink. Is what kept going through my head every time the doctor would talk. He would take me out of the scene.
Yeah,
Pike would drag me in, and then the doctor would drag me out because he just there was nothing there. There was just nothing, and you know, like, and even the one line that I didn't like was the bartender line where he says, we both get the same kind of customers, the living and the dying.
See, I like the line. I just don't like. I like.
It fell flat for me.
Yeah.
The
No,
line fell flat because of the actor. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. The line was great. It just wasn't delivered. And again, you know, I don't mean to pick on a person who's, you know, probably been dead for 50 years. You know, he just didn't sell me on that. And the scene could have been so much better, you know, had the guy, had I been able to connect with the doctor. And that, I guess that's the biggest thing, is like, I just didn't connect with the doctor. And again, given the fact that this is kind of, you know, there's several different relationships. There's Pike and Colt, you know, which is the awkward relationship. There's Pike and Number One, which is kind of a stable professional relationship, you know, mutual respect, they're equals. You've got Pike and Spock on the planet, which Spock's, you know, just grinning, you know, big toothy grins. And then you got Pike and the Doctor, which is supposed to be kind of like, you know, Pa Kent talking to the captain. And the only one of those relationships that I don't buy is the Doctor one. And again, it's Justin, because I can't connect with him. Everything else I connect with. I don't connect with that. So for a scene that is pivotal to this character arc in the first episode, I really, like, if it had just been upped a little bit, it could have really sold me on that. So yeah, I digress, man. It could have been, it could have just really been great, you know.
Yeah. Okay, so now let's quickly go over a couple of scenes here back to back, and that would be when the crew meets on board, and the Doctor again gives another long-winded speech saying the same thing over again, just repeating it in different ways, and trying to sound like, you know, this is, you know, dangerous and they're in peril, but he's not. I'm sorry, he gave no urgency in his voice at all, and no, like, oh shit, we're up against the brick wall. It was more like, by the way, they can read all your thoughts and they can read everything, so make sure that you stay positive. It's just, oh no. And then the other one I want to quickly touch on is the fight scene between Pike and the big bad in this one, and which is a hallucination or a test or a trial put on by the Telosians. Cap, thoughts?
Well, I find it funny that there were a lot of things that the Doctor presumed based on the one interaction with the illusion of the crew that was there, supposedly there, and seeing the beings that were, you know, there to take Pike. He presumed a lot of stuff with what they know, with how they work, and again, the line was really not well delivered, and it just it kind of pulls you out of the moment. And as far as the rest of it, it really and the fight scene, I would have to say that you know, Pike was presuming that that it was an illusion, because of what he believed to be going on, where obviously there was some element of risk involved that he didn't seem to understand, and that we'll get into later. But it's just, I don't know. We'll have to keep going with this one.
Okay, advance.
Well, to me, the briefing room scene, everybody when they were talking about the briefing room scene, everyone had a sense of urgency about them. Again, not to beat a dead horse, the Doctor was the only one that kind of had a feeling of incompetence. Going back to the planet, when he was talking to Pike, like, Captain, everyone is almost too healthy. And then he wants to talk to the captain, but he never really gets the chance to. And then the captain goes off with Vina, and it's like, no, something's wrong. You need to pull the dude off and be like, nah, dude, we need, none of this is right. And so, first off, you blew it right there. Then you're up to the ship, and again, everyone has a sense of urgency about the situation, presence about them, and you're just kind of, well, here's the thing, and here's the thing, and it's like, dude, seriously, like, are you smoking something from those singing plants down there? Like, what is wrong with you? So, like, I honestly, I see why he was replaced in Where No Man Has Gone Before with that fat doctor, because it's like, dude, you're so, to me, it's like you're very incompetent. So I got no sense of urgency from him. I see why they took Pike instead of the Doctor, because at least Pike can carry a conversation. This dude is really, I don't think he should be there. That being said, the fight scene, he went into that with the same type of, okay, I don't know what's going on. It's just like an alien world we've been on that we don't understand the full thing. So he's kind of tiptoeing the waters there. And you kind of get the sense of, that wonderment of, like, okay, been here before. I don't know the rules of the game. All right, let's see what this is all about. And he goes accordingly. At the end, or at the end of that, having killed that big thing, the big dude. Again, everything he does is like just tiptoeing to see, okay, what are the rules that are being established here. I don't really enjoy it because it's like, it's not really my cup of tea. It is kind of slow paced for, a fight scene, because of course, we have different standards by today, but I'm sure back then it was probably more exciting because they didn't have a lot of stuff back then. Today we've got MMA, we've got boxing, we've got, WWE, type stuff. So back then I'm sure it was probably pretty graphic to see someone get stabbed in the back with a sword and stabbed, with him jumping on a sword. But I think Pike acted accordingly with everything. He doesn't know the rules, he doesn't know what's going on, and it's got to be very strange to be reliving a complete scene that happened weeks ago, a couple days ago. It's got to be terrifying for him. But so I think he handled perfect under pressure. So to me, I still think it works on several levels.
Yeah, I mean, the fight scene, I mean, to nitpick it too much would be harsh, because you can't put it under a 2020 lens. It's just,
exactly,
you got to remember when it was made.
Exactly.
So for the time, this was good. He acted it well. The big bad played it well. Yes, it was clunky. Maybe they could have used a fight choreographer, but it's all good. For the time, it was good. It was good.
Well, and one thing I brought up that while we were watching it, I brought up to you guys was, the background of the planet. While Pike and Spock were on the planet, those backgrounds, those I think they were matte paintings of the backgrounds. Like those are really good backgrounds. They hold up very well, giving you the alien presence. Just feeling very, very Outer Limits, Twilight Zone-esque. Those hold up very well. so for what they had at the time with very low budget, or maybe at the time it was high budget, I don't know. I still think it holds up, especially for being filmed black and white. Really good. So, I mean, you can nitpick anything, but I think the first half of it, I think the Cage, was great. And despite my lack of interest in the Doctor, I think it was great. I would have loved to have seen a series with these people. And ironically enough, we're going to get that with Strange New Worlds.
Yes. I don't know. For me, it's interesting. I think for me, the more interesting part about the whole thing is seeing how each character is different. How the Doctor is different from, say, McCoy. How Spock is different to Spock that we knew, that we later get to know, and how Spock is remembered now. I think that's the most interesting thing about watching The Cage for me, is to see just how the roles were different.
Right.
And for me, that's always the cool aspect of this. But for now, we're going to leave it there. And next Tuesday, we will release the second edition of this. And I hope everybody enjoyed the video. Please like, share, subscribe. I want to thank my panel, my round table here, Captain Trek and Vance Major. Thank you so much for coming on and doing this with me.
Well, first off, Ramblin',
Yep.
let me ask you this before we go.
Yeah.
On a 1 to 10, what would you rate this episode? 1 being bad, 10 being great. What would you rate Cage Part 1?
I'd give it a 5.
Give it a 5, huh?
Yeah, I'd
Yeah.
give it a 5.
about-
And Cap?
I would give it a 6, a good solid 6. What about you, Vance?
I honestly think I'd say probably a 9. They were starting
Okay.
fresh. They didn't have anything to go off of, so hearing all the weird lingo was kind of cool. They were establishing a whole new franchise, so I give them a little bit more leeway than having an established canon already. It's not Spock's brain type quality, so I'm a little more forgiving, and you got to be a little more forgiving with the pilot of something. So I'd say probably an 8.
Okay. Yeah. For me, I mean, the 5 only comes because the Doctor really killed it for me. I mean, he just sucked all the energy out of those scenes. Any scene the Doctor was in, he sucked the energy out of. I'm sorry, I just despise him. I am so. I even said it when we were watching it. Was thank God for McCoy. But maybe that's just my bias, right? But no, so I'd give it a solid 5. But again, I just want to say thank you for watching the video. Thank you to my round table. And I hope you join us each and every week when we continue to look at the original series, episode by episode. And next week will be The Cage Part 2. So till next time, take her easy, folks.